Hey, let me show you how we find fuel restrictions here at Stevens Truck Power. Got an N14 here. Complaint from the driver or owner is that under higher RPM and load, this truck will surge and cut out and cause him all kinds of grief. But you have to be at a lot higher RPM to be able to tell that. It'll idle just fine. And so what I've got hooked up here is a pressure vacuum transducer from Fluke that we use to be able to find that, and I can find that problem without actually duplicating the problem. I'll explain that here, but so we're into a test port right here. Most M14s will have a test port there. If not, you'll need to come up with the fitting. But we're hooked there, and what we're measuring is vacuum. We're going to measure how hard that fuel pump has to suck to get the fuel that it's requiring to run the motor. The spec is it should be about 6 on the vacuum gauge, 6 to 8 depending upon if your filter's clean or dirty or what. So right here we should see 6 to 8 if the system's working properly. So we'll start that up. I'll show you what we're coming up with. So this plugs into your Fluke meter. It works off the millivolt scale. You just go to the vacuum side right there and we'll see what we get here. Alright, as you can see, we're already past the 6, aren't we? The truck's idling fine, running fine. If it drove in here, you wouldn't think there was anything wrong with it, but we can tell from this gauge that we have a big problem. And if you rev it up, it gets up to about 18, 19, and then it starts to cut out. So now we know we got a problem. We're going to find that problem, and I'll show you how we're going to do that right now. Okay, so at idle, we went up 16, 17, which is way too high. So what I'm going to do, just to make things easy, is I am going to hook another fuel line up, and we're going to hook it right here, and we're going to run this fuel line in a bucket or into the top of the tank. This line happens to be long enough that we're just going to run it right into the top of the tank on the truck. Then we're going to test again and see what we got. So bear with me here. We'll get this unhooked. The reason I'm hooking here is I'm eliminating the whole suction system right here. So if it still does it when we're hooked to this, then our problem is somewhere right here, not back here. And so that's what we're going to try and do, is eliminate which direction we got to go right now. I'll have to get this top one a little bit too. Okay. And we'll take our fuel line. So you just need to have a line made up. You just need one fitting on it, really. And we'll hook that there. Just like so. Make sure you get her snugged up. And then we'll just run this hose right down the truck if I don't knock my tool over. And we're just going to drop it in the top of the tank. Knock my tool over. Just want to make sure you got enough fuel, and good to go here. All right, guys, we've got our fuel line hooked up right here. We've got it dropped in the top of the tank. Luckily, this hose is long enough because the tanks are set back a little bit, but it's no big deal. You can run it in a bucket also, no problem. So we're hooked here. So what I've done is I've eliminated the whole fuel system, the cooling plate, the lines to the tank, the tanks themselves, because I'm running right in the top. So we're going to start this up and see if our problem still exists. So, like I said, I think the spec is 6 or 8 max with a clean filter. And we'll see what we got, and then we'll know which direction we need to go. So let's fire up and see what our gauge says. Let's rev it up and see if it moves at all. Where did we get to? I wasn't watching the gauge.
3.5 almost.
Okay, so right there tells me that we've fixed we haven't fixed the problem, but we found the problem exists somewhere between this hose and the tank. So we still got a ways to go, but we know it's not forward. We fixed the restriction. The filter's good, the filter head's good. Everything right here is good. So now I'm just going to move this hose back a connection. So we'll hook this back up and we'll go to here. Okay, if we got the problem still from there, then the problem's between that fitting and that fitting. If we fix the problem still, then it's further back. So bear with me here. We'll hurry and swap this fitting out. Change our lines over. Now, each time you do this, you're obviously going to lose prime, so you're going to have to start it up, rev it up, make sure you got good prime before you start the test. And if you remember, we loosened the top of this line too, so you always want to double check everything so you don't catch yourself with another problem that you caused on your own. So these are a little bit tough to get to sometimes. There we go. All right, now we're going to pull this one off. And for those that don't know, this is the inlet to the drop my wrench. This is the inlet to the ECM cooling plate, and so the fuel runs behind the ECM and then out this top piece right here and cools that ECM before it goes into the motor. There is a check valve right here, which definitely could be an issue, but we'll get to that in a moment, because if we hook the line up right here and we don't have a problem, there's no need to even pull that check valve because the problem's further back, right? So it's a little bit of a process, but you know what? It's kind of a fun process to try and figure it out. We're gonna hook this line right there. Get that tight. Okay. Now we're gonna have to get prime again, obviously, so we'll get started up here. All right, let's look at our gauge now. All right, we are back to 12 and climbing. 13, just sitting there at idle. Okay, we're supposed to be 6 or under, right? When we were hooked to the other fitting, we were like 3 or 4. So now we're back to 13. Okay, we found where our problem lies. Since we still have a problem and we're running in the top of the tank and we didn't have a problem here, our problem lies between this fitting and the end of this hose. So now it's just a matter of figuring out our restriction or where we're getting air or what, and fixing her up. So let's see what we can find here. We'll pull this off real quick, just see if there's anything in the fitting. Sometimes I've found hay leaves in here before, sticks. It makes you wonder how it all gets in there. Let's see. Got a light on you? Well, we're definitely running some fuel back out, that's for sure. Okay, I don't see anything obvious. At least nothing right there, but there's probably something stuck in that cooling plate, or we got a check valve problem or a hose right here problem, right? So all right, let's pull this hose back off. And you know, you can do this and guess, but it's nice to have the proper tools to know when you've got it fixed and when you don't, and you're not spending a bunch of money on hoses that you didn't need, right? You could replace every hose and probably fix this. It's time and money. Alright, with a little bit of movie magic, I pulled this off because it's just easier to get to, because we're going to get to this check valve and this hose. So I grabbed a couple more tools that I'm going to need, but let's get this hose off. blows fuel through it. Covered myself. So doesn't necessarily mean this line's good. They get little flappers in them sometimes because the inside's rubber, and that flapper will fold over and then restrict the fuel. So right now we're still just investigating. Let's get this check valve out of here. If any of you didn't know, this is a one-way check valve. If you don't have a one-way check valve here, then that would be why your truck cranks too long. But it's supposed to be there to block the fuel from returning back down the line so that the truck will start easier. Okay, so this is our check valve. Blend again. Okay, nothing obvious in the plate. That doesn't mean there's not something stuck in there, but this check valve, there's actually a little bit of crud stuck in that. I don't know if you can see that. I shouldn't be able to blow through it both directions, and I'm going to be able to. So I should be able to blow through it this way, but not this way. So this check valve is actually bad. I don't know that it's our restriction, but it definitely at least needs cleaned out, because I don't know if you can see that. You see in there? There's some, see that on that, right on the left side there, there's a black crud. That is keeping it from shutting all the way, and my concern is maybe it's keeping it from opening too. Let me go grab a pick and see if we can get this thing to open up. Alright, I got a pick. I'm going to clean this out, but I mean, I'm blowing pretty hard on this, and it's barely coming out. So this may be our problem. Usually they're not a restriction right here. Usually it's just they don't close good, so it doesn't start good. But I think this might be our issue. I think I have a new one of these, so we'll blow through it and see what the difference is before we clean it out, so you can see. Let me go grab it. Alright guys, I found a used one. I thought I had a new one, but there's a used one. This is how it should actually work. So it would normally sit in here like this, right? So it's a one-way check, so I shouldn't be able to blow that way. Nothing, right? Compare that to this. Might be our guy right here. In fact, I can't even move that, so there's supposed to be a spring in there. See that going up and down? Nothing. So even though this is used, I think we better try it out and see if this is our whole issue. And you know, someone's going to say, well, that's the first thing I'd check, so you know, I would have done it quicker, and you're probably right. These are a common problem, but not necessarily for a restriction problem, more for not starting good. But at least we didn't do a bunch of work that we didn't need to do, right? So we troubleshoot, we find the problem. Hopefully we found the problem, and not change a bunch of parts that the customer doesn't need, which happens a lot at shops. And providing this works, hopefully he'll be happy and want to come back for some repeat business that, you know, we can provide for him. So we got that tight. So I'm just gonna leave well, I guess I could hook the line back up. It really doesn't matter at this point, but I'll probably hook the line back up just so that I know we're still blocking off the rest of the system. Now, if we still have a problem, then we're obviously still this direction of the fuel tank. So I'm going to say this line is possibly bad also, or something is in the cooling plate keeping us from working right. But the fact that I couldn't blow through that fitting very good is really making me think that's our culprit right there. You know, and I guess I should specify that this isn't just a Cummins thing. I mean, this is how you check, you know, restriction on every motor if you've got the tooling to do it. I feel this is the best way rather than just sit and change hoses all day. it's nice. Cummins does actually have these test ports. They come with the motor. A lot of them will have the fittings already in them, so kind of nice when you have to do that. You're not looking for fittings you don't have. This never goes fast enough when you're being filmed, I can tell you that. Just trying to keep the line straight so it doesn't wrap up and touch something, and then you think it's tight and it's not tight, and you caused yourself a whole nother fuel restriction or air problem that wasn't there before. Alright, that's tight. We'll hook this line back up. Now again, we're all unhooked, right? So we're gonna have to get primed. The truck will probably die in the process of all this. What I'm probably gonna end up doing is buying a new fluke meter when this is all said and done, because I keep tipping it over. Alright, we're tight there, tight there. I'm just going to set this on. I generally make an effort not to put anything on that doesn't need tightened back up, but we may be pulling it right back off. So I'm just going to set that on so we don't have to hear the air compressor. We'll get this fired up, get some prime, and then we'll check it. Go back to our gauge. What do you know? Got to be under 6 at an idle. We are. We're hooked to the same place we were hooked to before when we were at 12, 13. We'll rev it up, make sure. That go to number 4. Okay, yeah, so there we have it. Now I've been burned before, so what we're going to do is put this back together and check it with its actual fuel lines on and not running into the tank. So that's where we're at next. I always want to verify, and then we'll go test drive and make sure that it's, you know, under load, it's not still doing it. But from our gauge, which we've never seen the truck act up at all sitting here, we know that we've fixed a very big suction problem. Alright, so we got our line hooked back up. That's all tight. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up before I forget, because sometimes you do forget. That way our air compressor gets its air. We don't lose a bunch of boost. There we go. All right, so final test, well, I shouldn't say final before the test drive is to make sure that we're not back to 13 or 14 or 15 with the whole system hooked up. And if we are, then, you know, we may have some other problem besides, but that was definitely an issue. So let's start her up and see what we got. Alright, plug our tool back in here. There we are. Started out with, oh, there goes all my tools. Started out with 13 to 17. Now we're at 3.6. That baby's fixed. It's ready to rock and roll. So we're going to go ahead and take all our tools off and double check all of our connections. Always double check. You think you tighten something, especially when you're doing a lot of lines like this. Stuff gets forgot, and it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. So just triple check, double check all your connections that you've had off. We'll go drive it, make sure we don't have a problem, and we'll give this one back to the customer and let them go make some money. If you're looking for this tool, we'll leave a link in for our Amazon where you can pick that up. It's a fluke pressure vacuum transducer. So today we just used the vacuum side of it, but it measures pressure also. So I could have hooked it somewhere else on the system and measured pressure, and it goes, I'm not sure of the range, but it's fairly high. So yeah, it's fairly expensive. It's a fluke, but what a great tool to have. Awesome way to find stuff, a little bit of fun besides, and you save the customer a lot of money with not changing a bunch of stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully we helped you out. We get a lot of calls with people with having fuel problems with N14s. This isn't always the issue, but a good way of finding stuff. And we appreciate you watching. If you have any questions or you need anything worked on, give us a call here at Stevens Truck Power, 435-743-5550. Thanks for watching.